Mojtaba may be set to take the Hormuz crisis to the next level, with Iran now reportedly eyeing the Gulf's undersea data arteries as a new pressure point. Trump's move against Iranian ships could be backfiring, as Tehran appears to be floating an internet choke point strategy alongside its maritime pressure campaign. Iran is reportedly mulling full control of all 7 undersea internet cables running through Hormuz, a move that would dramatically expand its leverage beyond oil shipping. Not only oil, Iran may now be looking to exploit the region's data choke point too, amid fresh IRGC-linked warnings over the vulnerability of Gulf cable infrastructure. Iran is reportedly considering a plan to take control of undersea cables passing through the Strait of Hormuz, widening its focus from ships and oil to the Gulf's digital infrastructure. Iran is said to be mulling full control over all 7 undersea internet cables in the Hormuz corridor, according to reports citing IRGC-linked media discussions. Tehran appears to be exploring a revenue model built around permits and toll payments for cable operators using the strategic waterway. Indian media reported the claim on May 10, citing a post attributed to Iran's fast news agency and related IRGC-linked messaging. Fast news agency said, and I quote, "In the proposed governance model for the Strait of Hormuz, the passage of submarine cables must be conducted with a permit and payment of tolls, and foreign companies must also operate under Iranian laws. Furthermore, the management, repair, and maintenance of these cables can be exclusively entrusted to Iranian companies, so that the Strait of Hormuz becomes one of Iran's digital power levers." Unquote. Iran now appears to be weighing the same choke point strategy it has long been accused of applying to commercial shipping in and around Hormuz. The revelation surfaced only days after reports warned that any move against undersea cables in Hormuz could trigger major internet, financial, and communications disruption across the region and beyond. The Eurasian Times reported on May 1 that it had examined multiple studies and assessments to highlight what it described as a growing threat to the global internet from tensions centered around Iran and the Gulf. According to that analysis, Iranian forces could potentially sever undersea cables and create yet another strategic choke point in the Strait of Hormuz, this time in the digital domain rather than only in energy shipping. Reports suggest that any serious disruption tied to Iran's cable threat could interfere with financial networks handling as much as $10 trillion in daily flows, turning a regional confrontation into a global economic shock. The economic value and strategic utility of subsea cables are exactly why many analysts increasingly see them not just as civilian infrastructure, but as highly attractive military targets in a crisis. As Eurasian Times put it, these cables function like the arteries that connect nation-states and their populations, carrying the digital lifeblood of modern commerce, communication, and coordination. There are more than 500 commercial undersea telecommunications cables supporting the modern global internet, which means damage to even a small number of key routes can have effects far beyond one region. Any interference with the normal flow of internet traffic can disrupt daily life and potentially trigger a wider livelihoods crisis, especially in economies deeply dependent on uninterrupted digital services. That is why the global internet backbone is increasingly being described as vulnerable, particularly where Gulf cable routes are exposed to the risks created by Iranian threats and regional conflict. Iran's geography gives Tehran unusual proximity to cable routes that link Asia, Europe, and the Gulf states, which is why analysts say its location offers leverage beyond missiles, drones, and oil shipping lanes. A relatively low-cost attack on subsea cables by Iran could therefore produce outsized and highly disruptive global effects, making this one of the more asymmetric options under discussion in current reporting. Some reports suggest that an Iranian strike on key cable routes could slow internet connectivity from Mumbai to Frankfurt within minutes, underlining how quickly the impact could spread across major business corridors. The same undersea cable threat could also hit banks, cloud services, and military communications, since all three rely heavily on resilient high-capacity international data links. More than 20 key cables are reported to pass near the Hormuz and Red Sea corridors, leaving a dense concentration of critical infrastructure exposed to rising conflict danger. With diplomacy still deadlocked, some observers believe Iran could choose to target such cables as a new source of leverage, especially if it seeks pressure points beyond direct battlefield escalation. Iran has already shown how effectively disruption in and around Hormuz can shake global energy markets, which is why fears are growing that a digital version of the same pressure tactic cannot be ruled out. Iran's IRGC has issued a sharp warning against any attacks on the nation's oil tankers or commercial vessels, framing them as a red line in the ongoing standoff with the United States. Tehran threatened that any fresh strike on Iranian shipping would trigger a heavy attack on U.S. military bases and allied warships operating in the region. The IRGC Aerospace Force added that its missiles and drones have already locked onto designated targets, according to a statement carried by Press TV. Brigadier General Saeed Majid Mousavi, a senior IRGC commander, said Iranian forces are now waiting for the final order to fire, emphasizing that the weapons are pre-targeted and ready. The senior commander described the U.S. military buildup around the Gulf as a direct provocation against Iran, arguing that it is designed to coerce rather than stabilize the region. Iran said the warning sends a crystal-clear message that Tehran will not tolerate any further aggression against its maritime or energy infrastructure. The threat followed a series of confrontations near the port of Jask after U.S. forces targeted Iranian ships and tankers engaged in regional transit. Iran claimed that the IRGC Navy responded with a precise and overwhelming counter-operation, intended to reverse the impact of the U.S. strikes. The alleged response reportedly included anti-ship ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and high-explosive drones deployed against tracked vessels and support assets. Iranian media claimed that the strikes forced U.S. warships to retreat from the area in disarray, portraying the engagement as a tactical setback for Washington. Tehran also accused Washington of threatening regional maritime security and key shipping lanes, arguing that U.S. operations create the main source of instability in the Gulf. The IRGC added that only sea corridors authorized by Iran are considered safe for transit through the Strait of Hormuz, insisting that vessels must comply with Tehran's controls. Iran warned that any foreign force making a hostile move in the designated maritime zone would face immediate confrontation, leaving no room for ambiguity in its stance. Meanwhile, Donald Trump responded with a series of cryptic posts on Truth Social, hinting at future military steps and raising fears that the exchange could trigger further escalation. Iran's new threats came as Trump said he might restart Project Freedom in the Strait of Hormuz, suggesting a return to his plan to guide stranded ships through the waterway.
We may go back to Project Freedom if things don't happen, but should it be Project Freedom Plus, meaning Project Freedom Plus other...
Donald Trump has announced the launch of Project Freedom, a UN-led initiative aimed at helping dozens of merchant ships stranded in and around the Strait of Hormuz, starting from May 4th. Trump described the operation as a humanitarian gesture, intended to assist neutral country vessels and their crews caught in the war zone, many of which are running low on supplies while waiting for safe passage. However, U.S. officials later clarified to outlets such as the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom would not involve direct naval escorts in the way his initial remarks implied. Instead, the White House outlined the creation of a maritime coordination cell that will identify and share safe routes through the strait, clear of mines and high-risk areas, while coordinating with commercial shipping lines and allied navies. This signals a more limited, advisory role for the U.S. military than the image of warships physically shepherding tankers through the Chokepoint that Trump's announcement initially suggested. Subsequently, Trump announced he was halting Project Freedom just 36 hours after its launch, citing progress in negotiations and pressure from regional allies.